Hello, Michelle, and welcome to the Wild Wonder podcast.
Thank you, and good morning from Belize. Thank you so much
Oh,
for inviting me.
no, it's so great to see your face finally. It's interesting because I've been doing this podcast for almost 2 years, and even though yoga has been such a catalyst in my life, we've never explored the topic of yoga on the podcast before. So you're our first yogi.
Oh, I am so honored. I am really honored.
And I feel like I have the privilege of being the interviewer because I've been able to watch your work kind of from afar. And it seems that you use yoga and meditation and these mindfulness practices to really, start change in your community and in the people around you. So I would just like to know how you were led to yoga or how yoga found you.
It's so funny that you say how yoga found you because I kind of felt that you were going to ask me this question. And my first thinking of what I would answer would be how yoga found me, not necessarily how I found yoga. But I guess it's intertwined, so it's like a weird synchronicity there. Um, like many people, I struggled with mental health. Many people that have entered, has started to practice different, facets of yoga to really balance their nervous system and to improve their mental health and to see life in a more positive way. And so, like most people, as a teenager, a young adult, I really struggled with depression and anxiety and, you know, self-esteem, like identity, eating disorders, you name it, everything that
Right.
comes with those things, I kind of experienced.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until I really opened up to my family and really told them, because I was one of those secret depressives, like
Yeah.
I suffered from depression, but in anybody that would necessarily meet me, they always thought that I was this cheery, had everything going, kind of person. And from the outside, it really did look like that. Uh, anyway, so I started therapy. I was put on a myriad amount of drugs, and it was, the lowest moment of my life when I was kind of like in bed for 6 months, and
Wow.
I started to drink, not necessarily to get drunk, but just to sleep because I didn't want to be
Hmm.
awake, and nobody could understand. Nobody could understand what I was experiencing because from the
Hmm.
outside it looked so well. Anyway, my therapist in Miami suggested two places that I go um, to choose from, and to go to an in-person, facility and stay for a while. And I I had the choice of either a Harvard medical facility or this place called Sierra Tucson. And the more I found out about it, the more I researched about it, it really kind of um, I was really drawn to it because it respected the Eastern forms of healing. So there was meditation, there was mindfulness meditation, there was acupuncture. They did Reiki, there was yoga, and there were all these different things that they
And this
offered,
was
as well as,
sorry, this was in Tucson?
yes, it's a place called
Okay.
Sierra Tucson,
Hmm.
and it's in Tucson, Arizona. And so I flew there and I was there for a month. And this is where I experienced all of these wonderful, modalities of healing. And I learned about nutrition and parallel to group therapy and individual therapy. But they respected both Western and Eastern, so that there were some
Hmm.
people that, needed the help of some medication just to get them to a place where they can feel like they can do certain things in life. And that I totally respected. But it was a place where there was all different people from all different walks of life that had experienced all sorts of addictions. There were drug addicts, there were sex addicts, there were people that suffered from eating disorders, and we were all together. And they addressed everything as being stress related. So when your
Hmm.
body, your mind is under stress, like we look for different ways to self-medicate and to ease, and so that's how they approached everything. And so I left there with a whole new outlook on life. I had learned a lot about myself. I had learned a lot about why I was the way I was. And I had all these tools that I'd been doing for the past month, and when you think about it, it was just like on the surface, but they really helped me. And so I got involved with everything with the encouragement of my mother. She's like, if you love yoga, like I was practicing it for a year, and she goes, the best place to go if you want to teach yoga is to go to India, and the Reiki, like if you want to do that, like learn to become a Reiki practitioner. And I went to I'm now a Reiki master. And so everything that, and there was something that was with me throughout this experience at Sierra Tucson that was like, oh wow, I could offer this. Oh wow, like other people can, if I know about this, other people can benefit. It was just something like I felt as though I was experiencing everything that I'd experienced, the good, the bad, the ugly, for something bigger. And that's why I got involved, and that's why I went searching for more knowledge and to explore self in a deeper way. And so it became my life, and that's really how it started, And everything that I offer here at Om Shanti, besides the EMDR, was something that I learned at Sierra Tucson that actually helped me. And so it's been, I think I kind of realized when I was there that there was a purpose from all the experiences that I was having. And I just really wanted to share. And I was really cognizant of the fact that I was privileged in the sense that it was costly to go there. And the people that needed it in my community would never be able to, it was just not, it was not in the financial, it wasn't even really in the finances of my mom. Like she always jokes that she spent her retirement on that treatment.
It paid off.
Yeah. And so that's what I did. And so that's how I got involved in yoga. And then I just kept going deeper and deeper into the more spiritual aspects of it, because I think there is a correlation between, and now I understand it a little bit better, that I know that I have a little bit more knowledge with the integrative approach, because in my tradition, we look at Ayurveda, we look at Vedic astrology, Jyotisha, we practice Kriyas for different things, and we really get to understand ourselves, our personal selves, a little bit better. And so we work with the practices that can help strengthen the things that we need strengthening, and then to just support the things that we need support, and to just enjoy the things that are naturally there for us.
Right.
And so and so the more that I get into it, the more knowledge that I acquire, the more I'm drawn towards the spiritual aspects and the integrative approach that can benefit really anyone, no matter their religious or spiritual beliefs. Yeah.
But I do want to go back to the family support piece is huge. I think for a lot of Black and Brown communities, I could speak for myself, Caribbean communities, kind of that for many, the anxiety and depression is either not well understood or kind of thrown under the rug. And I think not only did your family support you financially, but there's that huge piece of like acknowledging your suffering. Could you speak on that?
For sure. I mean, it was kind of like acknowledging suffering that they couldn't understand, but they felt.
Okay.
You understand? It's like they didn't understand why I was this way, but they felt it. They could feel my suffering. There was, a time when, I mean, even up to now, you don't really, we're talking about it more, and it's more openly understood, depression, anxiety, mental health. But when I first kind of came out, I wasn't really comfortable seeing a therapist in Belize because I didn't want people to
Mm-hmm.
know, you know what I mean? There
Yeah,
was like
yeah.
this mistrust, and so there was also this notion of, maybe, we won't tell. They wanted me to get well, but there was also this feeling that, um, of protecting me and
Mm-hmm.
protecting, how people saw me,
Right.
uh, and those things. But definitely there was definitely a stigma, with
Mm-hmm.
anyone that suffers from any kind of mental health issues. And even now, I think even now that people are talking about it more, there's still this, it's weird because so many people suffer from it, but so
Right.
many people are still withholding, and withholding sharing. And it's when you
Mm-hmm.
share that you realize you're not alone, and there's this the support system.
Yeah.
So there's still that element that's coming along. There's been some really brave people that have stepped up and have, come forward, people that are quite well known in Belizean society. And so it kind of opens some doors, and there's some mental health practitioners that are really trying to make it, more, um, understood, and they're respecting the
Mm.
science of yoga in as a tool to help with this, which is really something that I really appreciate as well.
Right.
Um, but there's always work to be done. There's always hills to climb in this respect. And I think the best way in which I've done it is, and I speak openly, and I was kind of I think one of the first people that started to speak openly. Uh, and it's because I felt I had overcome,
Mm-hmm.
certain, um, symptoms of the disease. And but then sometimes I regress, and there's always that admission that I have, and that
Right.
it's okay, and that many people are going through this. So it's really a matter of not really caring what people think, and just speaking your truth. But I have to say, the practices that I do, and the spiritual side of it, has really allowed me to feel really supported in this purpose, that, uh, we fall and we get back up. I always tell my students, hold yourself to excellence, but
Mm.
also be very willing to forgive yourself when you fall short. And there's a lesson to be learned in any backward step, as long as we take it and we move forward. And so
Right.
it's also, and when I say that I've overcome symptoms, I think more I mean that there's an aspect of the awareness of the symptoms. I know
Mm-hmm.
where they're coming from. They're not just coming out, and I'm not just reacting based on, I kind of understand now.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the way I think. I understand where my thoughts come from when they're regressing, and
Right.
just the awareness alone can really help you. Um,
Well, I've always
and
said
that's
that like meditation, when I started meditating, it created that space for me. And I think you're speaking to this between here comes the emotion, and I have a choice now that creates that space between reacting to it or diving into it or just letting it pass. And I think that's the piece you're speaking to.
Of course. And it comes, the more you do what, the more you meditate, and the more you have I think more you become aware, the more that space is, that becomes available to you in everyday life. It's not just when you're sitting in meditation.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you're doing all the things in life, throughout your day, you've got this constant awareness, and this
Mm-hmm.
constant, the observation of the feelings that you're having. Or even when you're being triggered, it's kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you're being triggered. It's not just a reaction that's coming out of nowhere. And And so you can take all the little tools, the tools from the toolbox that you
Mm-hmm.
acquire in that space of meditation in the morning or in the evening, and you can apply it to your everyday. And but you know, it's work and it's never ending. That's another thing that I try to tell people, that there is no end game. It's
Right.
once we step into that knowledge and kind of in a sense enjoy the process, because you go
Mm-hmm.
through this thing where, oh wow, I've transcended that, yay, you have a little party, and then it's like, okay, something else comes at me and I'm like, all right, well, I get this. And it's just your outlook, it's the way you perceive
Mm-hmm.
everything. Once you learn to change that, then you can really, I like to say, maneuver through life elegantly,
Mm-hmm.
even with the hits that come to you. It's like,
Right.
you understand. And but I think there's this pressure too sometimes when people think that there's an end result that we have
Yeah.
to acquire, and then they become frustrated when
Mm-hmm.
they transcend and then something else comes, and then then they become frustrated, and then they think, then sometimes people give up. But if we just have that notion that it's always a little bit wobbly, life
Yeah.
would be boring if it wasn't, right?
Yeah. I think I
um,
definitely went through that. I can speak to that because I felt like if I just did yoga in my earlier years, if I just did yoga and meditated, I think in the back of my mind I was thinking that life would be great. I would be perfectly peaceful and nothing bad could ever happen to me. It was kind of like superstitious, right? So then
yeah.
a couple years down the line when something really terrible did happen, I almost got more angry at the yoga practice. Like, you were supposed to save me. You were supposed to
Yeah.
make me better than this. You were supposed to not let anything happen to me. And
Yeah.
that struggle, that relationship with the practice lasted a year or 2 years. I really had to disentangle my own belief system around what yoga was and what it was meant to do.
Yeah, 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 for sure. It's so funny because during COVID, I did a beautiful course, uh, Sundarya Lahiri course, and it was kind of like the teachings of Shankara, who's one of the masters in my tradition. And in the end, we kind of all decided that, and I mean, it was kind of like um, giving honor to the notion of the goddess, the divine goddess, and
Mm-hmm.
the love for the divine goddess and the feminine energy and everything. Whether or not you appear male or female, it's just giving that.
Mm-hmm.
But throughout this course, at the end of the course, we did all these tantric practices, and it was just so beautiful, the experience. And then at the end of the day, it was so funny because through the study, we realized that all you as a yogi, you're also a human being, and you also have these emotions of frustration, anger. You have incredible love. You have all these emotions. But what I really think the practices that we do in yoga don't allow them to stick as
Mm-hmm.
long as if we weren't practicing. It
Yeah.
doesn't take away the experience, because
Right.
life is life, right?
Right.
It doesn't take away the experience that we have, but we always have the tool to go back, and it's like it doesn't allow us to be stuck um,
Mm.
for too long. and
Yeah.
and and so that's how I see it helping. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
that
sure.
that ability to go back to the mat, to like just go back, just sit for a minute, just try.
Yeah, yeah. And this seems really like one of these terms that's used a lot, but I know that whenever I experience something that I perceive as bad,
Mm.
there's always a very powerful learning experience to come from it.
Mm.
And also, if things aren't necessarily going our way, there's usually a reason for that. And
Mm.
there's if we really sit with experiences, there's always something that can help us um, grow.
Mm.
There is some element of that experience that can help us grow. And so if it's just so that we don't necessarily allow ourselves to be put in certain situations again, or to be
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
be more discerning, that sort
Mm-hmm.
of thing.
Right.
Um, so yeah, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
I'd love to know how your practice looks for you, your personal practice looks for you, maybe on a daily or weekly basis.
So, like I said, I'm more grounded in the spiritual
Mm-hmm.
aspect. So in the mornings, I'd say I usually get up around 4:30 in the morning, and I do my meditation practice, and that usually takes about 30 minutes.
Huh.
Um, I'm not doing a japa practice right now, but depending on the transit of the planetary transits,
Mm.
and I know what's coming on my chart, I would have a japa practice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I do puja in the morning, which is about 20 minutes, and
Mm.
it's a really beautiful. I have a set of chants that I do,
Okay.
and it really helps me connect to the elements and to ground myself in gratitude for the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for me. And then uh, in the evening, I would have some sort of sadhana that I do, whether it's a kriya practice, um, or another meditative sadhana. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Asana, I'm teaching, so I get my asana practice in
Right.
when I teach.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what my day looks like as far as as far as yogic practice is
Mm-hmm.
concerned. Uh, yeah, so
So you really
that's
like
how.
bookend your day with this practice because you're waking up and you're committing to this
Yeah.
practice, and then before bed you're reaffirming this practice.
Yeah, and it's kind of like keeping you waking up in gratitude, going to
Mm.
bed in gratitude. No matter what happened during the day, there's this, and it's also this moment of, um, especially when there's a meditative sadhana involved, there's this notion of kind of like recollecting and just observing and letting go, so that when you sleep, there's this really nice ease to your sleep,
Mm.
deep sleep. Um, and that's really how my day looks. I During COVID, it was beautiful for me because I had so much time. Well, for the
Mhm.
first 6 months of COVID, I was in India, and so we were doing practicing like 6 to 8 hours a day
Wow.
in the Himalayas. And then when I came back, I kind of tried to keep that, like you said, that's kind of like bookend
Mm.
practicing as best I can. But yeah,
That's beautiful.
yeah,
And you bring this love out into your community in such a big way. When was the moment you decided, like, I need to share this with the people of Belize?
that was the that was the initial,
Oh yeah,
the whole reason.
that was the whole thing.
It's Yeah, I never thought about like how am I going to make money. That wasn't a thing. It was just I wanted to be able to share uh all these things that I learned because it helped me so much. And I knew, you see, it didn't really have to do with your suffering is suffering, whether or not you're financially here or financially there. Suffering is suffering, right?
Mm.
And I just knew that if I could get it out to the community, and if people would be open to the practices, that there would be some element of um, relief in some of the
Mm.
suffering. I just wanted people to experience it because I knew people were suffering from what I'd suffered from because of
Hmm.
different reasons.
Right.
And so I started when I came back to Belize. I was away for some time. I came back to Belize and I started community classes, and then and then I opened Shanti, but I was doing community classes at the same time.
Hmm.
there was a friend of mine invited me to this gathering called Days of Healing. And it was a grassroots organization that was born out of a gang massacre that took place in Belize. And so the parents of all the gang rivals got together and the families, and they just wanted a day of healing every month that could bring everybody together, regardless of their, their territories, and just have like a day of healing. And so one of the first days of healings was outside of Belize City, and my friend Samaya invited me to go share yoga with the kids. And it was the most beautiful experience that I had. I remember I had a yogi friend visiting from Uruguay. And once we finished yoga, we started to do some dancing, some Creole dancing, sambai, and there was drums there. And it was really beautiful. And then the adults started to do it with us. And so I started to do that with this guy's sticks every month. And I would, get my mats, and we would go to different areas, gang areas, and we teach the kids on the streets.
Oh, wow.
Lay the mats, and we teach them on the streets, and that's how that started. And then it became very hard to control because there was music playing, and I was trying to get the kids used to meditating. So I ended up going to a school, the church that my mom goes to, St. Martin de Porres School, and I went to speak to this priest called Father Matt, and I said, hey, I really want to teach yoga in a community where the same community that would come to Days of Healing would be able to would be at the school. And he said, well, speak to our counseling department. And I ended up started doing an after school program, and we started to teach yoga there, and that lasted for years, really right up until COVID.
Wow.
Here. So that's how it started. And then it just evolved. Like people started to come in my life that wanted to do different things and wanted to do this and wanted to do that. And then it went, and then I had the people at the prison asked me to teach the under 18 males, that serious offenders, and I did that for a long time. I'd go into the prison system and teach them an Ashtanga practice, and they loved it. And then I started to work with the females in the prison, and we actually, through my yoga school, we certified 4 or 5, I think, teachers. So they started to do that there. And so it just evolved, like people started to hear, and then I was working in the youth hostel, and we kind of just spread. And then I began to get ambassadors in different areas of the country that would hold community classes, and I started to get fundraising efforts to try to give them some compensation, because these were people that were doing it from their time, but there was, things are kind of rough. So
Bills to be paid, yeah.
We started, they got bills to be paid. So that started to happen. And I think now we pretty much have an ambassador in every district for rock, and now abroad. You're one of our ambassadors.
Yeah.
And so it's just working out. I never really had a plan. Honestly, it just, people came into my life as I needed, and they came up as it was kind of like this morning in the shower thinking about what I was going to say, and then you say it. I'd have an idea, and then if within that week somebody would come in and say, listen, I can do this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought about this, and I just was figuring how I can do this, and you're going to do it. And a lot of people have given a lot of their time and a lot of their heart. It's all about heart-based collaboration. Like across the board, across the financial brackets, across the religious brackets, across all spectrums. It's just been a wonderful community and a wonderful heart-based extension of every person that's involved. And so when COVID hit, we developed a children's yoga series with a friend of mine that's a psychologist, and we came up with yoga series with scripts from age 5 to age 18. I mean, we were just flowing, and we have chair yoga on our website. It's just really full with stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, and then Shanti is growing. It's just
Beautiful.
it's just happening. Yeah.
I think there's two pieces to your story that I know listeners are going to be like, okay, so you need the faith piece. I think you had very strong faith, or you're being pulled by your heart. And then listeners may think, yeah, but she's also really brave. Because I know I've spoken to people, there's that decision, right? That people want to help in their community, but they might be scared to go into a community that's riddled with gang violence, or they're scared to go into a jail system, maybe because of their own fearfulness or feeling like they won't be able to contribute in the way they want to. So there was a decision to be made there that makes me think you're very brave, you know? Like, if I were in that situation, would I be able to do the same?
I didn't really think about it. You know, it's a really strange thing. It was kind of just spontaneous action.
Mm.
I know that when I came back to Belize, a friend of mine that I spent some time with in India, he kept saying, you know, it would be great if you could offer some of this stuff in the prison system. And at first, you know, first of all, I have to admit, there was this notion that I'm not good enough. Like, I don't know where I would start. And I remember trying to reach out to some people to come do it from abroad. And then he said to me, why don't you do it? Like, why are you trying to arrange all this stuff? You do it. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it.
Mm.
And I went without really even thinking. I really didn't have an expectation. I just knew that, and I didn't have fear. And I think it's because working with the gang areas also, there is, you know, there's this underlying thing that's the same in all of us. Whether
Mm.
or not we come from an area like that, there is this yearning for connectivity. There is this
Yeah.
yearning to feel supported. There is this yearning. And once you go, I think once you go in with a mindset that, uh, I went in with a mindset that I could learn.
Mm.
I can learn. And I learned so much from the kids that I taught. Like I learned about, you talk about bravery. I learned about that from 8-year-old kids that I was teaching in these schools that was smack in the middle of, you know, gang warfare. And
Mm-hmm.
I was and I also learned about compassion from them. I learned about steadfastness from the young men that were in the prison that I was teaching. And I also learned about curiosity and about, believe it or not, respect.
Yeah.
I was a female that was going in there, and you know, when I first wanted to do it, they told me no, and I had to like not wear any makeup. I had to cover myself, and I couldn't do the postures, and that's why I taught
Oh.
Ashtanga, because I had a Jesuit volunteer that was there as well, and he would do the postures, and while I would like do the count, you know. And I learned respect. I learned respect from these people, and I learned from the females. I learned compassion. I learned community. They're, you know, and so these notions that we have that fill us with fear, and this is like an ironic thing, because where does hatred really come from? It comes from fear. It comes
Yeah.
from fear of the unknown, right? It
Mm-hmm.
comes literally from fear of the unknown. And so, I mean, I never, I never really thought about that. And I developed really respectful relationships with all of them. You know, when I did the teacher training with the
Mm.
females, there was so much that and I learned gratitude. There was so much that they were grateful for, to be able to understand themselves more.
Mm.
And I was so grateful for them for actually opening up and letting go of the shell that they were holding on to for so long. I'll always remember on my birthday one year, a friend of mine who has a yoga studio in Punta Gorda that does some work. She does some work with rock down there. She's actually on our board now. Uh, she was teaching, I think, 3 times a week yoga classes down there, and she called me for the community.
Hmm.
And she texted me one year on my birthday, and she goes, "Happy birthday, but I think I have the best birthday present for you." And she said, "The other day I had a class and there was a new person in the class, and I noticed it was a young kid and he was really, really good." She does like a power yoga thing.
Hmm.
And and so I went up to him and I'm like, "Where did you learn yoga? Like, you're good." And he kind of got a little bit embarrassed, and then he pulled her aside and he said, "I learned it in prison." And so it was obvious that when he was released, he sought the yoga community. And that alone was like, okay, some things are working. Because I also don't think that you can do tests to see if yoga works,
Yeah.
and you can't give a time frame on it, because one person might it it they might it can work within 2 weeks, some people 2 years, but you can't really say it's not working because it's not
Hmm.
showing up yet, or
Right.
it's just one of those things. You can't really evaluate it in that way. Like, you can't give them a test and say if you pass, that means it's working.
Right.
um
But the
I
seed is
don't
there. I
believe.
think what you're doing is you're planting the seed, right?
Yeah,
With
yeah,
the
for
faith
sure.
that it'll grow.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things that I've learned too is that I don't push the practices that I personally do.
Hmm.
I stick with the stuff, especially with those that I'm introducing it to. Like, Ashtanga, I find, is a really good practice because it's really a
Hmm.
breathing system. And you can take it slower, you don't have to be as rigid. But it really helps to relieve tension from the body. It's meditative, and it also is a really good way in which people can breathe, like really learn to acknowledge their breath. So and then of course, restorative practices, meditation, those things. And then, you know, when curiosity is there, I speak of the other things that I practice, the Jyotisha and my meditation and my Kriya aspect, and I speak a little bit about my tradition after a while. And then if there's curiosity and sincere
Hmm.
curiosity and sincere inquiry, then I'll go a little bit deeper into that. But I think it's important for people to feel comfortable
Hmm.
with kind of like a practice that is uh, physical and then
Hmm.
meditative at first, and
Yeah.
then we talk about the other stuff.
Yeah, I always joke that yoga is the gateway drug, Like, you start with the
Yeah,
asanas and then little by little you start craving more and more and more.
yeah. I mean, I like to say it's the technology of humanity.
Mm.
Um, and I say that with the integrative practice, uh, the use of the integrative practice, in the sense that we don't we acknowledge all the systems. We don't really. It's not a reductionary practice where we
Right.
only will meditate, will breathe, we only will do this. It kind of has to encompass everything, but baby steps. You know what I mean? Baby steps.
Right. So for a person that it has recognized their suffering, and I think that's yoga is one of those things that you come to on your knees most of the time. How would a person just get started? Knowing nothing about yoga, knowing nothing about the practice, what would you recommend that they do first?
I think finding a community, a yoga community, because that in itself is supportive. Even if you're just coming to class, say twice a week or something like that. Sorry, my battery is running out, unfortunately. But anyway, um, if I think finding a yoga community and finding a practice, finding an instructor that you resonate with, that helps because there's
Mm-hmm.
support. And it's sangha, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
sangha that really helps to support you. And I always think it's good to support yourself, to surround yourself with people that are looking to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking to find, they're looking to also have support, but looking to evolve, to transcend it, not to be
Mm-hmm.
stuck there. They're looking for ways in which to improve themselves. And a supportive community that doesn't gossip and doesn't do those things, but to really lift you up and you know, you can practice together. And then I think that's a good start. And then once you have that practice together, you'll find out about different personal practices that you can do. It just will naturally, I think, actually happen. You know, people will talk, you'll share. Um, and there's this, ironically, there's this nice uh, way in which you can build uh, from that. So yeah, I say find a yoga studio or yoga community, and also, service is really important. That's what I've learned too in in overcoming all the depression and the anxiety. When you take yourself away from your
Mm-hmm.
suffering and you
Right.
start to give, it's like you take yourself away from that ego mentality,
Mm-hmm.
and you start to get you in my community, in my tradition, we call it dan, service. And so you find your uh, a community that you can give back to, and you give back without any expectation and anything
Right.
in return. You just give, and that's also a way to find a community of people that are involved in service, and you know doing something that you like to do, like for instance, my mom probably doesn't even know it's service, but she loves to cook. And so she cooks for, different people in her community that like
Mm-hmm.
she loves to cook. So that's her service.
Right.
And it's joyous, it's
Right.
not burden filled. And it helps to really take yourself away from even kind of like victim mentality.
Yeah.
That's also an aspect that I like to talk on. It's not sometimes received so well, but there
Mm-hmm.
is an aspect of, okay, we've had an experience, we've experienced trauma. Every single human being in life has experienced something. We sit with it, we heal, we heal, but there has to be a point that we let it go and we don't identify anymore, because then we're inhibiting ourselves to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And and it might take years and years and years, but that's the direction we're looking to go to,
Yeah.
right? So it's like letting go of the victim mentality. If it's just to say, yes, I've experienced this, but how can I transcend it? How can I heal?
Mm-hmm.
And even to go even further, how can I help others?
Right.
How can I help others with this? And I think that's the best way to
Mm-hmm.
really step into it. Find a community that is about that. And don't go in there thinking that community is perfect either, because
Right.
remember,
Yeah.
we're all perfect. We all have our little flaws. But it's working with that and knowing that everybody's human, and seeing, working with what we can work. If we can't work with it anymore, that's okay too. We
Right.
can move on. But always looking for how we can serve, I think, is an important aspect to healing.
I think it's an aspect that's often overlooked now that like yoga has blown up in the West. I think there's a lot of focus on individual growth, and I think the piece that is often missing is that, and then let me share this piece that I've received with others.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot within the way I, not to be critical, but there's a lot
Hmm.
that I believe in the way that the West has kind of um, marketed yoga, and to some extent the watered downness of it. Um, But then again, whenever I start to think this, I start to also say there has to be an entrance point, like you said. So
Right.
we have to kind of figure that out. Um, but yes, for sure. It's kind of like a self motivation, and there's nothing wrong with that. But
Mhm.
there's also that notion of healing. And ironically enough, I feel as though the healing simultaneously happens as you give. You learn about yourself more as you give, the more that you're exposed to people um, that are like this, and to also be around like-minded people that are wanting to give. There's that community element too. But for sure, I never, it's funny enough, I never really thought about that. But yeah, it's true. It is
Yeah.
really let's work on healing ourselves and gaining better self-esteem and better
Mhm.
self-confidence to really go out there and master the world, where
Right.
there's ironically too, there's I was thinking about this morning, that there's yoga masters in this world that have never practiced yoga before. And it's just how they live,
How they are. Oh.
yeah, how they live, how they think.
Mm.
um and so those also, that's also an aspect to look at it. It's
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
some
Well,
people are
you
just
do.
natural.
I know. I always look at those people and I'm like, how blessed to be born like that, so joyful, so peaceful, so inherently, yoga filled. Um, it's really cool. But you do so much in your community, and I would love for our community to learn more about, your work at Om Shanti, the Rhythm of Change in Belize, and anything else you'd like to mention.
Okay, so Shanti Belize is now, it's one of the, in a sense, it's under the umbrella of Harborview Boutique Hotel and Yoga Retreat here in Belize City. And we're kind of like an oasis in the city. It's very much like nature. We have greens, we have a labyrinth, we have lots of birds and flora and fauna. And within the hotel, there's Om Shanti Belize, which is a yoga school, so people can stay and do yoga trainings.
Mm.
And we also have a holistic spa. Um, we offer Reiki attunement, and at the moment we're putting in an infrared sauna and cold plunge for people with rheumatic um, problems, and also for autoimmune diseases, and for athletes that need to recover easier. We do massages, but my school offers 200-hour integrative yoga teacher training. So they learn all the spiritual aspects. They learn the kriyas. They learn asana. We touch on some Vedic wisdom, the Bhagavad Gita and the sutras. Um, and it's a really beautiful, it's kind of, our teacher training is like a 2.5 week healing retreat as well as a teacher training. And the title of it is Heal, Evolve, Inspire. So it really encourages those who want to do a teacher training to heal, and
Mhm.
then experience the evolution within the 2.5 weeks. And it's pretty intense. We're up early in the morning because it kind of follows a little bit my daily
Mhm.
practices. And they learn. We do a trauma informed training within it, um, and they come out um, really inspired within themselves, and really inspired to share the practices. So the last group that we had two soldiers from the Belize Defense Force who are now sharing yoga practices with the soldiers. And we had two massage therapists, and we had some entrepreneurs that attended. So I thought that was, and a nurse. We had a nurse who looks as though they want to share with their fellow medical practitioners. So I'm always really happy when I see, the people from those communities that really want to help. And
How
so that's what
often
we
is
do.
it? Do you have it once a year or more
Uh,
often?
we we had it in the end of May to mid-June, and it was the first one after COVID. Normally, I do twice a year,
Okay.
but what I'm trying to test the waters to see how it
Mm-hmm.
goes. But yeah, people come from abroad and stay with us. We have like a package. Our cafe is vegan vegetarian, so we incorporate that food. They learn about Ayurveda as well. So it's a really nice all-encompassing, and everything kind of fits together. They understand truly what yoga is. That it's not just bending yourself. They really understand it, and so they come. So many of them came with an idea of what it was, and then left with this is like very expansive view.
Right.
Yeah, and then we do Reiki attunements. I do attunements one self self healing, and then Reiki 2 healing others. And we've had a lot of spa massage therapists that are incorporating that into their treatments. And so yeah, it is. It's just it's some of the things that I'm learning. I'm sharing and hopefully get it. My idea was to really get like yoga teachers in all the hotels so hotels can really offer, and just to see Belize as this kind of wellness yoga destination, because we have so many beautiful hearts, and our the older generations were very much into herbal healing, quite a lot like Ayurveda.
Yeah.
So I have this vision of Belize being known for our wellness. Yeah.
It'll happen.
Yeah, I hope so. And with rock, I think with Rhythm of Change, for the past couple years, especially during COVID, like there was so much that we did. If you go to our website, like we have a rock boutique now. We have all these things that all our like board members and our executive director Rihanna, like we just came together and we had like this Shakti behind us. We were just doing. Because we felt as though there was a need of the hour, that we needed to get these practices out for people to be able to cope. We did we videoed the children's series. We did all this stuff. Our festival every year we did online, and that you shared with. And then everything opened up, and it's getting back to normal. And it's just as though we're all kind of gradually now trying to figure out our own personal lives, like how are we going to integrate back into society, like how are we going to do, like what, how are we going to make a living, that kind of thing. And so the creative aspect of rock has kind of slowed down, but we have these practices online, and we're working in person with some foundations, with personal growth. Our executive director, Rihanna Schnar, who's also a psychologist, she developed a personal growth curriculum for people that kind of wanted, and of course, she's incorporated many yogic techniques and practices. And so we have that's being done, and we're teaching teachers to be children's yoga teachers within the different gang communities, so that they're teaching their children. So we're doing some stuff, but the creative aspect I think has calmed down a little bit, because we did so much during COVID that it's just like putting it in implementation. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So is the Rhythm of Change, the international festival, Belize International Yoga Festival, is that still happening in person, or you're focusing more on the online offering?
No. Last year we actually had it in person as well, and we had some Belizeans that come, but it was also online. And this year we're also going to do the same. We're looking for it to be at the end, like the 25th and 26th of November, because we get a lot of people that come to celebrate Thanksgiving here, and it was kind of like a group decision to make the theme about gratitude and being grateful for like being able to come out of COVID in the way that we did. and to just use that as a theme. So we kind of fit it together with the Thanksgiving time, and so we're gonna see how that works.
So this year,
But yeah,
November 25th and 26th?
25th to 20. Yeah, it should be on our website soon.
Okay.
On the website for Rhythm of Change is yogahealsbelize.com.
I'll put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, and on that, we have breathwork courses, 30-day courses that, the breathwork that can help with everything from anger, trauma, grief, um, addictions, everything. I mean, it's really powerful 30-day courses that you can read. We have about two of those. We have yoga for seniors. We have yoga for nursing homes, for people that are bedridden, to give them breathwork exercises and movement. Children's yoga courses from 5 to 8, 9 to 12, 13 to 18. And they're progressive, so they're all age appropriate. We work with the psychologist, so we're doing practices that help for the development of that particular age group. And we have chair yoga. There's a lot up there that we filmed during COVID for people to access online.
So I know what I'm doing after I log off with you. Then I'm gonna go look at the breath work for sure. I actually started breath work at the worst possible time when I had COVID. I started one of the pranayamas. Yeah, so I want to do it again with healthy set of lungs.
Yeah. I tell you, but ironically, it's like now we have these practices to really help to strengthen our lungs, to expand the lung capacity, and to help with our immune system, because it really plays a part. All those things plays a part, and our nervous system.
That's amazing. So. Well, I thank you so much. We planned on 30, 40 minutes, and we've gone almost an hour. So.
Is that right? Oh gosh.
But I'm so grateful to you. I've had goosebumps most of the conversation because they felt so true to my heart, and I know you've inspired me, as you have so many. So thank you.
Oh, and I look forward to when I'm in the States to come and visit you, or if you're ever wanting a break to come visit me,
you
don't
have to ask me twice.
Mi casa es tu casa, for sure.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Michelle. I hope to speak to you soon.
Okay, bye, darling. Take care. Namaste.
Namaste.